Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Profit Minds podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Stephen Kirch, creator of the Profit Minds Growth System, a unique blend of profit growth, productivity acceleration, and building robust business process for scale. In every episode, I interview entrepreneurs and small business owners from around the world with a unique story to tell. You can find the show on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple and Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and more. Well, hi, everyone. Today, my guest is Melissa Smith, the PVA, an award-winning consultant and best-selling author on the subject of today's conversation, how to hire the right virtual assistant. Welcome, Melissa.
Hi, welcome. Excited to talk about productivity and profits today, two of my favorite subjects.
That's great. So you know that the first question I ask every guest, because I find it so interesting, how did you get to be where you are?
Yeah, so I always knew that I wanted to be an assistant growing up. My mom was an assistant, and I just thought it was, the greatest. She wore a suit and she went to work, and when I went into work to visit her, everyone would say, "Your mom's amazing. We couldn't run this office without her. This is just, fantastic." And I thought, well, I want to be that person when I grow up too. So I went to secretary school back when that's what we were called, and had a job and was an executive assistant for over 15 years before I started virtual assisting. And in 2012, my husband passed away suddenly. And it just created these ripple effects of what am I going to do with my life now? I never thought that I would be not doing executive assistant work, but part of the whole fluctuation of our lives was doing some cross-country moves. We were in Georgia at the time. I'm originally from California, so we had gone back home. My son was in college, but my daughter was a junior in high school, and moved back to my hometown. She was in school. I had a job that I loved. I actually thought I would be there forever. The average time that someone spent at the company was about 25 years on average. So some people had been there over 30 years. And I thought, I can see why. I'm also going to be what we call the lifer. And then my daughter going into her senior year said, I can't do this anymore. I want to go home. I want to graduate with my friends. California's not my home. She had been primarily raised in Georgia. So I knew I had to give that to her. So I went to my boss to give my 2 weeks notice. And he said, "We don't want to lose you. How can we keep you?" And I said, "Well, I can do most of what I do virtually. I don't have to be here in the office." And so he said, "Okay, let's do that." So that was 10 years ago. I became their first remote employee. And a few years, not a few years, a few weeks into working that way, they sent out contracts fairly early in the year for the following year. And I sent mine back unsigned. I just thought, if I can do this for them, like maybe I could do it for myself. And so very naively, I decided to start my own business as a virtual assistant. And they were very supportive. I finished out my contract with them, and they told me, if I ever needed or wanted to go back, that there was always a place for me there. And yeah, so then I started virtual assisting. And when I started, almost every conversation without fail started with, "What's that? How do you do that? How is that possible?" Fast forward now, I rarely have those types of conversations anymore. One of the benefits of COVID for my industry is that I no longer have to have educational sessions with clients anymore.
Right. Yeah. I mean, everybody does stuff virtually. I mean, we had to all of a sudden, March 16th or 17th or whatever state you were in, whatever, here in California anyway, that's when things completely shut down in 2020, and everybody had to figure it out.
Yeah, I had a lot of people coming to me because at the time, it probably still is. If you Google remote work consultant, I'm one of the first people who pop up. So my my email and my office was kind of like a virtual triage because I'm very specific in what I do, even in remote work consulting. I specialize in the hiring process and very particular people who I hire and match. And so I was constantly sending people to here, you speak to this person, speak to that person. This is person who knows, this person who understands, this person has this type of background who can assist you, because then, a lot of people had to make ends meet. And so everyone all of a sudden became a remote work consultant, even if they hadn't been doing it for a while. And so I felt really compelled to be able to help people and say, here's someone who's been doing it a long time. They know the ins and outs. They know legal ramifications. They know how to set up an office, employees. And here's, they have trusted resources. If you have boards, stakeholders, they'll know how to have conversations with them, all things that are absolutely outside of my realm. And so in that case, it was nice, but it was definitely something that I saw coming. I never saw COVID coming, of course, but I would speak to a lot of executive assistants, and many of them didn't like what I had to say. They saw me as like the enemy, because I would tell them, tell me what you're going to do without an office. And they would say the office could never run without me. And I would say, well, there's going to come a day where there is no office. So what's your value proposition after that to make sure that you have the appropriate one? And so it was quite sad and frustrating, and trying to help people out all during that time to figure out how do I do this remotely? How do I have the same type of value in person that I do remotely, and vice versa?
Yeah. Interesting. And so part of what you do now is not, of course, just be a virtual assistant, but what's the matching process like? You help people figure out who they should have working for them, and so describe that process, figuring out what you want to have somebody do, and because that's our audience, right? Is they're
Mhm.
small business owners, who probably do stuff that they should or could at least delegate to a virtual assistant.
Yeah, well, I love to make money. I'm very driven by making money.
Who doesn't?
I have the mindset of let's throw money at problems. I didn't always know that about myself, but I really quickly came to learn that's who I am. I'm not a DIYer. But if you're also a productivity geek, like you describe yourself, there becomes a time where you really have to say, okay, if I am into productivity, what am I producing? And you see it as this conveyor belt, right? So what am I producing? How many times a day do I produce it? How many times a week do I produce it? What's the cadence of that? And if I stop doing this thing over here, does that stop as well? And I always really enjoyed doing that in an office, and where I was, and educating was always part of what I did as an assistant, because I saw the evolution over time. When I entered into the workforce, not every place that I worked had a computer. It was just a different kind of time, a different kind of era. So now here we're evolving, and I was all for it, even though I'm not really like a tech geek. I love freedom and flexibility. And so here I was starting my business. I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew how to educate people on how to work with virtual assistants. So I was out networking, meeting a lot of people, educating them on virtual assistants, what we do, how we could help them. And at the end of the conversation, they would say, great, can I hire you? And I would say no. And they would look at me like I was crazy. And I would say, I could do that, but I couldn't do it better than you could do it. I couldn't anticipate your needs to the point where you're going to get a better benefit from it. I can't foresee the future and forecast. I would only be a task taker and that option. And that's not the measure of a virtual assistant. So the true measure of a virtual assistant, whether human or AI, is to be able to anticipate your needs. And until you find someone who can do that, then you are not working with the right VA. And so we'd have conversations, and I'd say, tell me what you want. Tell me what you need. If you could wave a magic wand, and we would just start to reverse engineer the process. And then also, right, because our productivity is everyone gets 24 hours in a day. So then we look at a time budget. Where's your time debt going? What is the thing that you want to do versus the thing that you need to do versus the thing that makes you money? When do you want to see the ROI? And then based on all these things, I can tell them, here's your person. Here's how you're going to attract them. Here is the key identifiers of this person, and here's what's going to excite them. And how do I know all these things? Because it's my industry, it's in my field. I've been in it for almost 30 years. I've grown up in it. And every assistant's different. And although I work with a lot of corporate clients, ex-corporate clients, they would say, well, surely you could do that because I was polished and professional. And I said, yeah, but I don't speak corporate. I don't understand the nuances. I never wanted to work in corporate. So you need someone who knows how to do those board presentations. You need someone who can really do really great PowerPoint presentations, and someone who's going to anticipate all these things along with that. And they would say, oh yeah, you're right, I do, because that would be a deal breaker for me. But for them, it's obvious. And then I have other clients and they're from corporate, but now they're in startup. Well, that's a completely different animal. So I like, okay, here we need someone who's polished as corporate, but that works at the speed of startup. We need someone who's not flustered. We need someone who can unblock themselves. They don't have 20 different departments that they can call on if something doesn't go right. They know how to get it done. And from there, we just keep on going down. Who is this person? What do they look like? How do they talk? What do they enjoy? And so I really enjoyed doing that. And I didn't realize it, but when I was working in in my career as an EA, I was on every hiring board along with my boss. And so I would just naturally pick these things up over time because I'd be able to see and hear all these different conversations. It wasn't my place to jump in and make my recommendations, but afterwards I'd go and I'd tap my boss on the shoulder and I'd say, I think this person's missing. I think this person would have longevity. I think, this, and they would allow me to in on those conversations. And I really loved it because for me, it was about putting the pieces of the puzzle together. I've never had a job that I didn't love. And I always had to change jobs because I would tap out in my position without a degree. So I never fully left the job market. Every 2 years, long before millennials made it commonplace, I was changing jobs. So I really understood what was out there. And so I find it super fascinating because I know that for every job a business owner doesn't want to get rid of, hates to do, finds tedious, doesn't even know the impact, there's someone out there who is like, this is my dream. And you have clients saying, where do I find this person? And you have VAs saying, where do I find my clients? And for me, eventually, after like a year, this light bulb went off and I thought, how can two people who want to meet so badly not know about each other? And that's when I just decided I was going to do this. And again, it's an evolution. I did not start out to be a business owner. I started out wanting to have my own virtual assistant clients. And then when I just started matchmaking, that really changed the trajectory of my business.
Yeah. So where do you find the right VA? Where do you find the right assistant?
Well, one of my favorite places to look is LinkedIn. And for me, that's because most of my clients are looking for someone who is, I would say, LinkedIn quality. A lot of my clients have a corporate background. So they really want someone who is polished, professional, grammatical skills, you name it. That person doesn't have to like live on LinkedIn. They don't have to be a LinkedIn expert, but we want to see their career. We want to see their background. We want to see what companies they have worked for in the past. Now, if it's something above and beyond that, say if someone comes to me and says, you know what, I need someone who can help me step up my TikTok game. Well, that person definitely on TikTok. If you want someone who's on Facebook, who's on Instagram, go there. Pinterest, go there. You want to go wherever your people are. And then at a more, at a closer level, I have a lot of clients who before me, they would just post out and say, hey, does anyone know a VA? Well, if you do that, you're going to be inundated with tons and tons of VAs and people recommending their VA. But what I do is I give my clients a written job description that will both attract the right VA and deter the wrong VA from even applying. So now when you say, hey, network, whether you send it out to your email, put it on LinkedIn, one of your private groups that you're in, I'm looking for this person. Do you know this person? And if they say yes, now we can start to have a conversation. Now people can start self-identifying and say, that's me. Because in fact, when I do a search, the VA doesn't even know who the client is. They're so committed to the work and so in love with the work that they apply for the opportunity to do it, not even knowing who the client is, because that's why we're attracting them in the first place.
So should somebody look for VAs like in the States or offshore, or what does that look like? How does that play into the equation?
That's very much how the person likes to work. So if you consider yourself a natural delegator, if you are the type of person that says, I can tell someone to do something 5 times and that's okay. I'm the type of person that will have everything together. And if they just do exactly what I say, then I'll be fine with that. I know how I'm going to use this person to help me and assist me. It doesn't matter if they know how they're going to assist me. And that's a broad generalization, but it's pretty accurate. You're going to find people who, can do outside that. But culturally, it's not the norm. So I have some clients that say, "Oh, yeah, I totally get it. I've been working, offshore for years. It's not new to me. I understand the culture. I understand that they're not going to push back on me. I understand that this is just what I need to get done. And, if it's not right, I know what I'm doing. I can go in and there, tell them how to do it. I'm happy to do another Loom video for them." It's more of a personal preference as well as a delegation preference. A lot of my clients would say, delegating is work. If I have to stop in my day and make a to-do list for my assistant, then I'm no longer saving time or energy. That's exhausting for me. I don't have enough time in the day as it is already. And when I get something back, I need it to be as close to perfect as possible. If I have to go and tell this person, no, this isn't right, do it again, now we're at another level. And that is really a personal preference. I've worked with all different types of industries, all different types of people. And I certainly have clients who have come to me and say, I still have my VA from overseas, but now I'm ready to level up. I need someone who can do more. That was good for now. Now I need something that's going to be good for the future.
And so, do you match both domestically and overseas?
I don't match overseas. However, I do have a DIY program that I help others learn how to do that, because I'm here to make sure that everyone has profits, right? I want you to get the most out of your dollars. It's not financially responsible to pay me to do a full service match for you when you're going to be paying a lot less. I can't do a background check. I can't guarantee it. If you're going to be doing that type of service anyways, your value is going to be like, I feel really comfortable doing this. I've done this before. So I have a completely different service that is valuable and would be a much better fit for someone who is going to hire that. I want to see everyone keep as much profit as they can in their pockets.
What's the biggest challenge when you bring on a new VA?
Mm-hmm.
What's the biggest challenge? What's the number one thing? Maybe I'll say that the hiring manager or the person doing the hiring. What's the biggest problem that they have? What's the thing that they do wrong most?
They don't speak up fast enough when something doesn't go the way they like. And I say the same thing to everybody. I tell them, if you don't like something, be quick about it. We're not sponsored by Kleenex. You're not going to hurt our feelings. We need to know how we can be successful. And so if you're thinking, well, it just happened once. No, this is the way that they work. It doesn't mean that they can't change it. It doesn't even mean that they don't want to change it. But what happens is people say, I don't want to be that kind of boss. I don't want to be that kind of manager. I don't want to be that type of client. But what type would that be? the person who's paying to have it done the way that you want it. The VA actually wants to meet your expectations, because if they don't, they know they can't keep you long term. But the longer you wait, and then one day it blows up, or one day you're just having a bad day, or you're like, I can't believe this person is still doing it this way. And then you tell that person, I don't like this, don't do it this way anymore. They are so confused. And now they will probably shut down in every other area, because they're thinking, what else am I doing that's wrong? What else have I done that this person is not telling me? And they just start to shut down, and the productivity just is almost
Craters.
nil.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. I mean, we're all like that, right?
Mhm.
And having a virtual assistant that you don't see face to face every day makes that uh, a, a a bigger challenge,
Mhm.
right? So communication, I think that's probably, I mean, based on what you're saying, that's probably the number one thing. What's what are there tips that you have for communicating properly, effectively with your VA?
Absolutely. I match on communication strategy, and I do a client fit. So communication has to be in your manner, your medium, your tone, your verbiage. Has to be super simple for you, or else you won't do it and it's not working. So I have clients and I ask them, how do you want to communicate? And they're like, I'll communicate anyway. And I said, no, you won't. If you were walking through the grocery store and you were like, oh, I forgot to tell my VA this, how would you communicate? And you would say, oh, great. I would I would send a text, or I would send an email. I said, great. That's your number one. You can have more than one. You can't have five. You have to have one that you default to, so that it's easy. I want you to be able to be in constant communication. And for some VAs, they have that a client has to log into a system, or you have to put a ticket, or they don't take phone calls, or they don't do Slack. And if that's the way the client wants to, and you can't do that, then that's the tail wagging the dog. It should always be in your manner. And then the ideal client fit. So there are certainly VAs who have the same communication strategy as you. They could do the work, but you're actually not their ideal. When they get up in the morning, they're not super excited. If they look at their phone or look at their email, they might be like, versus being really excited. They should think, wow, I get to work with Stephen. This is amazing. Like, this is doing exactly the type of work that I wanted to do, exactly for the type of client I wanted to work for. They should really love it, and they should want to work to keep you as a client. And far too often people say, well, this person came, my friend really likes them. She's working for my colleague. It works out great. My colleague really likes her. And then when it doesn't work out between the two of them, the client thinks, oh, maybe I'm not doing it right. Maybe it's not me. But you can have someone who's a really great VA for a colleague and still not be a really great VA for you. So when clients ask me, you have a guarantee? I said, absolutely, I have a guarantee. If it doesn't work out with 90 days, I'll match it with another VA. I have a 98% successful match rate, so it doesn't happen often. But I said, but actually, if it doesn't work out, it's not going to work out within the first 2 weeks. But a 2-week guarantee doesn't make anyone feel good, so I give 90 days. But at 2 weeks, if you don't feel like you're vibing, it is time to move on. And it's hard for a lot of people, because they're thinking, but I want to give this person a chance. I want to do this. That person needs to want what you want as well.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So I know you have a book. We're running out of time here, but talk a little bit about your book, and then what's the best way for someone to get in touch with you?
Absolutely. And for anyone who's like, maybe you're being productive and you've been listening and you're like, oh, I maybe need to write this down. Like, don't worry about it. You don't have to memorize anything that you can look up later. So my book is called Hire the Right Virtual Assistant. It has the hiring workbook in it that I use. It's my complete process. So my mission is just that anyone who wants to hire the right VA has the opportunity to do so, whether or not you hire me. So it's, what do you need before you need to hire someone? How do you determine why you should hire someone? What to do, what to go through the process. It'll break down how to go through the interview process and review proposals and contracts, and even all the way to, when it's time to get rid of someone, even hire a team. It's not written as a cover to cover book. I understand that everyone's busy. Everyone is got a lot of things on their plate. You can go directly to the section. If you haven't hired a VA already, I highly recommend that you go through the whole thing. It'll put all the pieces together. But if you just need to go to a certain place and pick out what you need, absolutely 100%. It's meant to be a how-to book, not a novel. And so that's one of my favorite parts about it. But also the interactive hiring workbook that comes with it is amazing. But if you say, you know what, that still sounds like a lot of work, I'm a really busy person, that's fine. You could just email me at Melissa at thepva.com. You can visit my website, thepva.com. I live on LinkedIn, and just put like Profit Minds podcast in the subject line. And so I'll know, we can get right down to business and figure out how this VA can help you be more profitable and be more productive in your business. But I'm totally fine with answering questions that might take you 20 minutes to look up, and I can answer it in 5. I'm here to save you time and money, and most importantly, energy. Because when it comes to productivity, if you don't manage your energy levels, you just can't sustain productivity.
Oh, that is so true. Thanks for that reminder. And that concludes our show. Thanks to my guest, Melissa Smith, the PVA, an award-winning consultant and best-selling author. I hope you learned something about hiring the right virtual assistant. I know I did. Thanks for listening. You've been listening to the Profit Minds podcast. This is your host, Dr. Stephen Kirch. Please visit www.profitminds.net for other episodes or to contact me. Thank you for your positive feedback, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others. Thanks for listening. Have a grateful day.